Welcome. This is a guidance video by the REC Code Manager to provide further information on if you want to complete your Safe Isolation Provider qualification and you're currently an existing EMO. So in terms of what we're going to discuss today, firstly, we're going to talk about some of the other videos we've created around the Safe Isolation Providers, which may provide additional context on the SIP role if you don't have that already. We're then going to quickly touch upon the ComCop EMO accreditation that you should already have. And then we're going to talk about how to expand that qualification into the Safe Isolation Provider role. And then finally, we're going to finish up by letting you know where you can find further guidance and further information on the SIP role, as well as answer any queries that you might have on the REC. So if we move on to some of the videos that we've already created, so there is a video which provides further context to the Safe Isolation Provider role, such as the terminology we use under the REC, the history and context of this SIP role, and the different requirements that a SIP has to follow, and finally where you can provide or find further information and guidance on the SIP role. Therefore, if you have any questions on what the SIP role is and haven't already seen this video, I'd recommend you doing so. Additionally, we've created 3 different videos for different parties depending on their current qualification. So if you're not already a qualified EMO, I'd recommend checking out one of our other videos which outlines what the qualification requirements to become a SIP are if you're not already an EMO. With that, let's jump in. So if you're watching this video, you should already be qualified as an EMO under the Consolidated Metering Code of Practice. So as a reminder, ComCop outlines the minimum requirements that apply to the installation, operation, and maintenance of metering equipment, which is essentially around making sure that this work is done safely and by competent and trained individuals. So as an EMO, you are qualified to work on meter points. However, you should currently be doing so under the instruction of a qualified mower, who's responsible for maintaining and managing the portfolio of meter points for a supplier, or you should be doing it under the instruction of a qualified SIP, who is qualified to contract directly with the meter point owner to undertake this work, and then send the relevant market messages out to other industry participants, such as suppliers or DNOs. If you're not already a qualified SIP and want to become one, then that's what this next section is about. So in order to become a Safe Isolation Provider, or SIP, under the REC, firstly, you'll need a Market Participant ID, or MPID. So an MPID is essentially a 4-digit letterbox, which will allow you to send and receive market messages with other industry participants, as I mentioned, such as suppliers or DNOs. So in order to get your 4-digit MPID, you need to contact the BSC's Market Domain Data, MDD, Coordination Team at mddc@alexon.co.uk. Then, in order to operate as a SIP, you'll need to follow a set of business requirements, which, for example, are outlined in Schedule 14, Metering Operations, Section 21. So the REC assessment will be ensuring that you're able to operate these business processes in line with your REC obligations. So firstly, we're going to ask you to complete a Business Solution Assessment, or BSA, where you're going to outline how you intend to operate your business. So that will include, in terms of the physical work, how you're going to make sure that the people who complete the work are qualified, such as if you have the EMO accreditation yourself, then you'll be able to point to that accreditation and the training and guidance documents that you provide your operatives. We're also going to ask how your head office is going to manage the different obligations under the REC. For example, after you complete some work, you'll have a requirement to send a market message or a data flow to the supplier, let them know that this work has been completed. So how is the head office going to make sure that they track this requirement and make sure that that market message is sent? And we're also going to ask you how you're going to implement the technical solution to be able to send and receive these different market messages or data flows over the data transfer network. So after you've told us how you're going to be operating your business, we'll then define a test scope for you to complete. And after you do this testing, you'll provide us with evidence of the testing you have completed. So this testing will focus on 3 key areas. So firstly, ensuring that the end-to-end business process functions as expected. So let's say, for example, you need to send a data flow. How are you going to make sure that you have all the information you need to be able to send this data flow? Will the operative be providing you with some information, or you'll be getting it from another source, such as the electricity inquiry service? So after you've done some testing on the end-to-end business process, we're also going to ask you to do some testing of your technical ability to be able to send and receive these data flows accurately. So how are you going to make sure that you've got the correct information in and it's been sent in the correct format? Then finally, we're going to ask you what controls and documentations you have in place to make sure you'll continuously meet your requirements under Schedule 14, as I say, the metering operations schedule. So after you've demonstrated your ability to be able to operate in line with REC requirements, you'll also need to accede to DCUSA before you can be qualified as a SIP. So in terms of the choreography for that, DCUSA will work on your session after you're some way along the REC market entry process, which is usually after you've completed the business solution assessment. So I'd recommend you contact the REC first, provide your business solution assessments. Then after that, you can do your DCUSA session and do your REC internal testing at the same time. Then, after the DCUSA session has been completed and the REC testing has been completed, you'll be qualified as a SIP. In order to then operate, you'll then need to make sure your market participant ID, your MPID, is live in MDD. So you'll do that by sending an MDD change request form to the Balance and Settlement Code, BSC, as well as an Entity 45 form, which outlines that you're now going to be operating as a SIP. Additionally, if you're not currently operating in any of the market roles under the BSC, then you'll need to submit an Entity 1 market participant form just to let them know that you're going to be beginning to operate. So those are the requirements in order to become qualified as a SIP. If you require any further information or guidance, I'd firstly point you towards our REC wiki page on safe isolation providers, which outlines the various qualification requirements depending on the qualifications you currently have and the type of work you want to complete. So essentially, it's a bit more of a written guidance on what we've just discussed today. Additionally, if you do have any questions on how you can meet your REC obligations, then you should reach out to your operational account manager, OEM, who will be happy to provide further guidance in supporting you in meeting your different REC requirements. If you have any general questions or queries about the REC, you can also contact the REC service desk, which you can do via the REC portal or by sending an email to inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. Finally, after you raise an application to become a SIP, the REC qualification team will define an entry assessment plan with you and will provide support on an ongoing basis to make sure that you're able to demonstrate your ability to operate in line with REC obligations, to complete your qualification, and then begin operating as a SIP. So if you are going to be applying to become a SIP, I look forward to receiving your application. And if you have any questions in the meantime, hopefully you now also know how to reach out to us.